The CMDB configuration management database is key to IT resilience as it underpins the service you provide to customers and employees. It's how you manage risk and keep your organisation secure, equipping you with a roadmap for disaster recovery. However, many organisations still struggle to maintain an accurate view of their estate and the relationships between their assets and cloud environments. Without the right foundation and insight, it's almost impossible to transform your organisation. I'm joined by Barry Crosby, Fujitsu's ServiceNow practice lead for Australia and New Zealand, and Michael Ludwig, ServiceNow Senior Director of Product Management, to discuss this. Now, Barry, if I can start with you, CMDB gets talked about a lot, but it's often confused or replaced with a more simple asset register. Can you briefly explain what differentiates the CMDB and why this is so important?
Yep, so it's back to basics a little bit. So assets are fundamentally anything useful or valuable within a product or a service. And the value for an asset is usually determined financially. CI is an element that delivers or supports some IT service, and CI contains attributes that may help make up that CI. And the CMDB is the store of the CIs, and the key part here is the relationship between those CIs, and that's what's fundamentally different between an asset register and a configuration management database. It's the relationships between those CIs.
It sounds like a critical part of the organisation's infrastructure. So where do these projects go wrong?
Trying to do too much manually. Even a small organization can have 1,000 configuration items, and then each configuration item can be related to 3 or 4 other configuration items. So instantly you've got a configuration management database with 4,000 relationships that you've got to try and manually maintain, and it's just not technically feasible, and it's not even practically feasible for organizations to maintain that level of detail manually. It's just complicated. So there's the simple fact is you've got to try and automate where you can. Most organizations have a large portion of the information, or even certain organizations have a lot of the information already in configuration management databases of one description or another. They've got systems that go out and capture this information already. So the best part is to be able to identify that information and start working with what you've got, and automate where you can. Automate the capture, or automate the maintenance, and then automate the correlation of the relationships between them. And don't go down the rabbit hole of trying to do too much too soon. Identify what you're actually trying to achieve from a business objective perspective, and work towards that objective, not just let's just do everything all at once. Most organizations kind of typically start off with that top 5 service orientation look, and work their way backwards from that.
Michael, is this the same as you're seeing with customers?
Yes, it is. I mean, digital transformation is always a combination of people, process, and technology. And Barry's correct in the sense that we don't always have the resources that we need, but more importantly, we need to focus on the business outcomes that we're trying to achieve. And so having a clear line of sight to the outcomes that you're trying to achieve, and then only populating in the data that you need to support those outcomes as an initial landing point, and then growing out from there, is essential.
Barry, how does this impact organisations' success when it comes to DX?
So the basics of digital experience and digital improvement, digital transformation, is based on the flow of information, and the core of that flow of information should be the configuration management database. There's a reason why the CMDB forms the core of just about every ITIL process. Being able to have that central repository, having things that then are tied together, means that you're not duplicating the information, you're not duplicating effort, and means you can start driving efficiencies and improvement and experience improvement from that. There's a large portion of this is to do with visibility and being able to see what's in your environment and how it looks, having that relationship information, and being able to draw on that and drive it into your organization to make those improvements.
Michael, what do we mean by a service-aware CMDB?
Much of what enterprises are trying to accomplish today are oriented around digital products and services, from the services that they provide internally to their own employees to the top line revenue generating services that they provide to their third party customers. And so everything is thought of more or less as digital products and services today. And being able to understand the underlying infrastructure that's pinned to those logical constructs is incredibly important.
Michael, can you share some examples of the business impact of outages?
Yes, in today's top line revenue generating applications, outages are a critical thing. When I look at the financial services industry, I'm very much aware of one of our clients who is a financial services company in the global arena. And when they suffer the inability to do credit card processing, it costs them $3 to $5 million a minute in their top line generating revenue applications.
That really puts it into context. Barry, is this similar to what you're hearing from customers?
Yep, I'll call this customer a heavily regulated customer. And the nightmare scenario that we had was that essentially a component of the payroll system actually broke. So nobody got paid for 2 weeks. They couldn't actually identify where the problem was. When they went through all of these different systems that supported the overall payroll solution, all of them individually were working as they should be. And it just took a huge amount of effort to work out exactly where the breakdown of the overall service was actually, happening before they could actually turn around and fix it. And the one thing they say you should never really mess around is one person's pay. So the ability to be able to identify this quicker because the flow of data going through these systems, having a really good CMDB, and that then tying into other elements like with incident management and change management and configuration management would have actually made it easier to identify where the problem was, and so they could fix it and resolve it a lot quicker.
So Barry, what steps can organisations take today to launch a service-aware and process-driven CMDB?
Look at what you've got. A lot of organizations have systems already in place that contain the information they're really looking for. You don't have to reinvent everything from scratch, start from scratch every single time. Once you've got the information and once you've identified those solutions and systems, is then making sure you can automate the collection, the collation, and the distribution of that data into your configuration management database. And take away as much of the manual effort and pain as possible. The minute you start adding manual steps into this kind of process, you're just going to slow things down.
Michael, what are your thoughts on how organisations can approach this?
Well, our common service data model allows a framework for understanding how various CIs should be related together to create the structure for understanding the impacts to those services. So obviously that's very important. But being able to automate and maintain the relationships that fit into that framework is incredibly important as well. And again, only focusing on the things that are necessary to drive the business outcomes that you're trying to achieve.
What are the trends we're seeing in the importance of the CMDB and how this will change for organisations?
Yes, at ServiceNow, we've become aware that it's incredibly important to understand the CMDB over an arc of time, meaning in its origins, it only represented the operational state of CIs. But now we're looking earlier into that software development lifecycle in and of itself. Understand what goes on in the planning phase and being able to populate CIs that support that appropriately. Being able to understand what development teams are doing and how they're executing within pipelines. And then finally, what's going on in the production world, alerts and incidents that are aligned to the services, and then of course being able to automate service delivery around that.
Barry, are there any final thoughts you'd like to add?
Yeah, I'd just like to agree. I don't believe the configuration management database is actually going anywhere. It's going to be still maintain a core of all of these processes and all the support elements of it. And I think what we're going to see is as this kind of matures into, into new areas of powering businesses, we're going to see a bigger reliance on having not just the configuration management database, but the layering of that service and service aware information on top of it to then empower businesses to, rather than focus on capturing and collating information, is actually then making business decisions based on the modeling that they've got on top of the information.
Barry, Michael, thank you very much for your input and your thoughts. And thank you for watching.